The fluorescent lights of First National Bank buzzed softly overhead as the Friday morning crowd shuffled through the marble-floored lobby. It was 10:47 a.m. in downtown Houston, Texas, and the air conditioning struggled against the oppressive heat outside. Olivia Walker stood behind counter number 3, her perfectly manicured nails tapping impatiently against the polished surface. At 32 years old, she wore her position like a crown, her designer blouse crisp, her makeup flawless, her attitude absolutely terrible. She had just finished with an elderly woman who'd taken too long counting her coins, and Olivia had made sure everyone in line knew how annoyed she was about it, rolling her eyes, sighing loudly, making the woman feel small. That's when the automatic doors slid open. James Carter wheeled himself into bank with quiet confidence. He was a black man in his early 40s, wearing an immaculate navy suit that probably cost more than most people's monthly rent. His wheelchair moved smoothly across the floor as he joined the line, a leather briefcase balanced on his lap. He smiled politely at the woman in front of him. She smiled back. Olivia noticed him immediately. Her eyes narrowed as she watched him wait patiently in line. Something about his calm demeanor, his expensive suit, his dignified presence, it irritated her. It didn't fit the picture she had in her small, prejudiced mind. When James finally reached her counter, he greeted her warmly. "Good morning. I hope you're having a wonderful day." Olivia looked him up and down, her lip curling slightly. She didn't respond to his greeting. "I need to speak with someone about opening a corporate account," James said, his voice steady and professional. "I have an appointment scheduled for 11 o'clock. Olivia leaned back in her chair, crossing her arms. "Corporate account?" She let out a small laugh. "Is this some kind of joke?" James's expression remained calm, though a flicker of something, maybe disappointment, crossed his eyes. "No, ma'am. I assure you it's not. I spoke with Mr. Henderson earlier this week, and—" "Mr. Henderson?" Olivia interrupted, her voice dripping with sarcasm. She looked around at the other tellers, then at the customers waiting in line, as if inviting them to share in her amusement. "Did you hear that, everyone? He has an appointment with Mr. Henderson." A few people shifted uncomfortably. Some looked away. Others stared, unsure of what was happening. James took a deep breath. "If you could just check your system, you'll see—" "Listen," Olivia said, leaning forward now, her voice loud enough for half the bank to hear. "I don't know what kind of game you're playing, but we don't have time for this. Corporate accounts are for real businesses, not for people like you." The words hung in the air like poison. "People like me?" James asked quietly. "You know exactly what I mean," Olivia said, her eyes cold. "We get people coming in here all the time, pretending to be something they're not, wearing suits they probably got from a thrift store, making up appointments, wasting our time." She looked pointedly at his wheelchair. "And honestly, we don't run a charity here. If you need social services, there's an office down the street. They can help you with whatever it is you really need." The bank had gone completely silent. A young mother with 2 children stared at Olivia in disbelief. An older gentleman in line shook his head slowly. Even the security guard by the door looked uncomfortable. But Olivia, she seemed pleased with herself. She sat back in her chair, that smug smile still on her face, completely confident that she had handled the situation appropriately. James looked at her for a long moment. His hands rested calmly on the armrests of his wheelchair. His expression was unreadable, not angry, not embarrassed, just still. "I see," he finally said. His voice was so quiet that people leaned in to hear. "I apologize for any confusion. Perhaps there's been a misunderstanding." "Oh, there's no misunderstanding," Olivia said, waving her hand dismissively. "Next customer, please." But James didn't move. Instead, he reached into his briefcase and pulled out a business card. He placed it gently on the counter and slid it toward Olivia. "Perhaps," he said, his eyes meeting hers directly, "you should call Mr. Henderson. Tell him that James Carter is here." The James Carter. And then he paused, and for the first time, a small smile appeared on his face. It wasn't cruel or mocking. It was knowing. "Then you might want to start updating your resume." Olivia glanced down at the card. Her eyes scanned the elegant lettering, the embossed logo, the title beneath his name. Her face went pale. The color drained from her cheeks so fast, it was like watching a ghost materialize. Her mouth opened and closed, then opened again. Her hand trembled as she picked up the card. But what Olivia didn't know, what she was about to discover in the most horrifying way possible, was that the man she had just humiliated, mocked, and dismissed in front of an entire bank lobby was about to change her life forever. Olivia's fingers trembled as she held the business card. The embossed gold lettering seemed to shimmer under fluorescent lights, almost mocking her. James Michael Carter, Chief Executive Officer, Carter Holdings and Investments. Below that, in smaller print, Principal Shareholder, First National Bank of Texas. No. This couldn't be real. This had to be fake. People printed fake business cards all the time, didn't they? You could order them online for $20. This was just another scam, another person trying to intimidate her, trying to make her look foolish. But even as these thoughts raced through her mind, something cold and heavy settled in her stomach, because she had heard that name before. James Carter. There had been emails, memos from upper management, something about new ownership, about restructuring, about someone acquiring a majority stake in the bank's parent company. But that was months ago, and Olivia never paid attention to those boring corporate announcements. She deleted them without reading. What did any of that have to do with her day-to-day work? Is there a problem? James asked, his voice still calm, still professional. Olivia looked up from the card. James sat there in his wheelchair, his hands folded patiently, that same knowing smile on his face. Behind him, every single person in the bank was watching, waiting. The young mother had pulled out her phone. She was recording. Olivia stammered. Her usual confidence had evaporated like water on hot pavement. This could be anyone's card. Anyone can print. You're absolutely right, James said, nodding. Why don't you call the number? It's my direct line. Or better yet, he glanced toward the back of the bank, where the management offices were located behind frosted glass doors. Why don't you go get Mr. Henderson? I believe he's expecting me. In fact, James checked his watch, a Patek Philippe that cost more than Olivia's car. I'm actually 2 minutes early. I pride myself on punctuality. Olivia's mouth had gone dry. Her heart was pounding so hard she could hear in her ears. Jennifer, she called out, her voice cracking slightly. She turned to the teller at the next counter, a younger woman with kind eyes who had watched the entire exchange with growing horror. Can you cover for me for a moment? Jennifer nodded slowly, her eyes darting between Olivia and James. Olivia stood up on shaking legs. She still held the business card, gripping it like it might bite her. Several people in line moved aside as she walked toward the management offices, her heels clicking against the marble floor. Each step felt like walking toward an execution. Back at the counter, James remained perfectly still. He nodded politely to the people still waiting in line. I apologize for the delay, everyone. This should be sorted out shortly. An elderly black man near the back of the line spoke up, his voice warm with admiration. Son, you don't owe anyone here an apology. Not after what she said to you. A few people murmured in agreement. James smiled gratefully. Thank you, sir. I appreciate that. The young mother who'd been recording lowered her phone slightly. That was disgusting, she said, loud enough for everyone to hear. The way she treated you? I got the whole thing on video. If you need it, for, whatever happens next. That's very kind of you, James said. I hope it won't be necessary, but thank you. Meanwhile, Olivia had reached a frosted glass door marked Regional Manager Marcus Henderson. Her hand hovered over the handle. Through the glass, she could see Mr. Henderson's silhouette. He was on the phone, laughing about something. She knocked softly. Too softly. He didn't hear. She knocked again, harder this time. Come in. Henderson's voice boomed. Olivia opened the door. Marcus Henderson was a large man in his 50s, with silver hair and a confident smile that came from 25 years in banking. He ended his phone call and looked up at Olivia. Olivia? What's going on? You look like you've seen a ghost. Mr. Henderson, She stepped inside and closed the door behind her. "There's a man out there. He says he has an appointment with you. He says his name is James Carter." The change in Henderson's expression was immediate and dramatic. His smile vanished. His eyes went wide. He stood up so fast his chair rolled backward and hit the wall. "James Carter is here?" Henderson's voice had gone up an octave. "James Carter is here now?" "Ah, yes, he's—" "Why didn't you bring him straight back?" Henderson was already moving around his desk, straightening his tie, smoothing his hair. "My God! Olivia, he's 15 minutes early. I wasn't expecting him until 11. He rushed past her toward the door, then stopped suddenly and turned back. "Wait, what do you mean there's a man out there? You did treat him with respect, didn't you? You know who he is, right?" Olivia's face had gone from pale to gray. She couldn't speak, couldn't form words. Henderson's eyes narrowed. "Olivia, what did you do?" I didn't know." He didn't say. "What did you do?" The words came out in a whisper. "I told him we don't run a charity. I said people like him waste our time. I told him to go to social services." The silence that followed was deafening. Marcus Henderson's face went through several colors, red, purple, then an almost ghostly white. His jaw clenched. His hands formed fists at his sides. "You told James Carter?" Henderson's voice was barely above a whisper, trembling with suppressed fury. "You told a man who owns this bank that we don't run a charity?" "I didn't know." Olivia's voice broke. Tears were forming in her eyes now. "How was I supposed to know? He's in a wheelchair and—" "Get out of my office." Henderson's roar made Olivia jump. "Get out of my office right now. Go to the break room. Don't speak to anyone. Don't touch anything. Don't even breathe unless I tell you to. Do you understand me?" Olivia nodded frantically, tears now streaming down her face, her carefully applied mascara running in black rivers. She fled. Henderson took 3 deep breaths, straightened his tie one more time, and put on his best professional smile. It looked strained, painful, like smiling while swallowing glass. He opened his office door and walked out into the main lobby. The moment he saw James Carter sitting patiently by the counter, Henderson's smile became more genuine, but it was the smile of a man trying to save his own career. "Mr. Carter," Henderson called out, walking quickly across the lobby with his hand extended. "I am so sorry to keep you waiting. Please forgive us. There's been a terrible misunderstanding." Every eye in the bank was on them now. James looked up at Henderson and shook his hand firmly. "Mr. Henderson, it's good to finally meet you in person. The pleasure is entirely mine, sir. Entirely mine." Henderson was practically bowing. "Please, let me escort you to my office. We have so much to discuss. Can I get you anything? Coffee? Water? I'm fine, thank you." "Right this way, sir. Right this way." As Henderson guided James toward the back offices, James paused. He turned slightly in his wheelchair and looked back at the bank lobby. His eyes found a counter where Olivia had been standing. It was empty now. He turned back to Henderson. "Your employee, the one at counter 3. Henderson's face twitched. "We'll be addressing that situation, Mr. Carter. I assure you." "I'd like her present for our meeting," James said quietly. Henderson stopped walking. "I'm sorry, sir." "The woman who helped me today. Olivia, I believe her name was." James's expression was unreadable. "I'd like her to be present for our conversation. All of it." Henderson looked like he might be sick, because what was about to happen in that office, what James Carter was about to reveal, would not only destroy Olivia's career, it would expose a truth that would shake the entire bank to its foundation. The walk to Henderson's office felt like a funeral march. Olivia had been summoned from the break room by Henderson's assistant, a tight-lipped woman named Patricia who wouldn't even make eye contact with her. The whispers had already started spreading through the bank like wildfire. Did you hear what she said to him? She told him to go to social services. She had no idea who he was. She's done. She's completely done. Now Olivia sat in a chair against the wall of Henderson's spacious office, trying to make herself as small as possible. Her eyes were red and swollen from crying. Her hands were clasped tightly in her lap, trembling. James Carter sat across from Henderson's massive oak desk, his wheelchair positioned perfectly, his posture relaxed. He looked completely at ease, like a man who belonged exactly where he was. Henderson sat behind his desk, and despite being in his own office, he looked like the uncomfortable one. Sweat had begun to form on his forehead. "Mr. Carter," Henderson began, his voice overly bright, "I want to apologize again for—" James held up a hand. "Before we begin, I'd like to tell you a story, if you don't mind." Henderson nodded eagerly. "Of course, sir. Of course." James folded his hands in his lap. His voice was calm, measured, like a professor beginning a lecture. "I was born in Oakland, California," he began. "My mother was a nurse. My father worked construction. We didn't have much, but we had love. We had dignity. And my parents taught me something very important. They taught me that how you treat people when they have nothing tells you everything about who you really are." Olivia kept her eyes on the floor. She wanted to disappear. "When I was 19, James continued, I was in a car accident. A drunk driver ran a red light. I woke up in a hospital and learned I'd never walk again." His voice didn't waver. No self-pity, just facts. "The doctors told me I was lucky to be alive. And I was, but I'd be lying if I said it was easy. Those first few years." He paused. "They were the hardest of my life, not because of the wheelchair, but because of how people started treating me." Henderson shifted uncomfortably. Suddenly, people who had looked me in the eye before didn't. People spoke slower to me, like I couldn't understand. Store clerks assumed I needed help with everything. Job interviewers saw the wheelchair before they saw my degrees, my experience, my potential. James looked directly at Olivia now. She forced herself to meet his gaze, tears streaming down her face again. I had one job interviewer tell me, and these were her exact words, "We're looking for someone more mobile. You understand." The silence in the room was suffocating. "But I didn't let it stop me," James said, turning back to Henderson. "I finished my MBA, started my first business with a $15,000 loan, lost everything in the first year, started again, failed again, and then on the third try something clicked." He smiled slightly. 10 years later, Carter Holdings was worth $50 million. 20 years later, $800 million. Today, James let the question hang in the air. Henderson swallowed hard. Today, Carter Holdings is valued at just over $3.2 billion. 3.4 actually, James corrected gently. As of last quarter, we had a good year. Olivia felt like she might faint. The room was spinning. "And 6 months ago," James continued, "when First National Bank of Texas was looking for investors to help with its expansion plans, Carter Holdings acquired a 62% controlling stake in your parent company." He let that sink in. "Which means, Mr. Henderson, that I don't just own this bank. I own the entire regional network. All 47 branches across Texas, Louisiana, and Oklahoma." Henderson's hands were shaking now. "Yes, sir. We've been looking forward to your visit. We prepared a full presentation about our—" "I'm not here for a presentation," James said quietly. The temperature in the room seemed to drop. "I'm here because 3 months ago, I started receiving complaints. Letters, emails, phone calls, all from customers at various branches, but particularly from this one." He pulled a folder from his briefcase and set it on Henderson's desk. Complaints about discrimination, about customers being treated differently based on the color of their skin, about loan applications from qualified Black and Hispanic applicants being denied at rates significantly higher than white applicants with identical credit profiles. Henderson's face had gone from red to white to gray. At first, I thought it might be coincidence, statistical anomaly, so I had my team dig deeper. We hired an independent firm to conduct secret shopper tests. We sent in applicants with identical financial profiles, same credit scores, same income levels, same everything, except for their race. James opened the folder. Inside were pages and pages of data, charts, photographs. The results were disturbing. Black applicants were 43% more likely to be denied loans at this branch. Hispanic applicants, 37% more likely. And when they were approved, they were offered higher interest rates despite qualifying for better terms. He looked up at Henderson. That's called redlining, Mr. Henderson, and it's been illegal since 1968. Mr. Carter, I had no idea. Henderson started. You had no idea, James repeated. His voice was still calm, but there was steel underneath now. You're the regional manager. These complaints came through your office. The statistical anomalies showed up in your quarterly reports. You had no idea. Henderson opened his mouth, then closed it. He had no answer. James turned to Olivia. Stand up, please. Olivia's legs barely supported her as she stood. She was visibly shaking. Tell me, James said, his eyes locked on hers. When you looked at me today, when you saw me roll into this bank, what did you see? Olivia's voice came out as a broken whisper. I don't know. Yes, you do. What did you see? Tears streamed down her face. I made assumptions. I was wrong. I'm so sorry. You saw someone you thought was beneath you. James said, not cruelly, but as a statement of fact. You saw someone you felt entitled to disrespect. And you did it publicly, loudly, making sure everyone around could see your contempt. I'm sorry, Olivia sobbed. Please, I'm so sorry. Here's what you didn't see, James continued. You didn't see that I graduated top of my class from Stanford. You didn't see that I built 3 successful companies from nothing. You didn't see that I employ over 2,000 people across my businesses. You didn't see that I've donated $17 million to disability rights organizations and scholarships for students of color. Each word was like a hammer blow. You didn't see any of that because you didn't look. You just made a decision about who I was based on what I looked like and the chair I sit in. Olivia collapsed back into her chair, sobbing openly now. James turned back to Henderson. I came here today for 2 reasons. First, to see firsthand what's happening in this bank. And now I know. And the second reason? Henderson asked, his voice barely audible. James smiled. It wasn't a warm smile. The second reason is to tell you that as of this morning, I'm implementing immediate changes across all 47 branches. There will be mandatory diversity training for all employees. There will be independent audits of every loan decision made in the past 3 years. And there will be a complete restructuring of management. He let that word hang in the air, management. Henderson's face went gray. Mr. Carter, please, I've been with this bank for 25 years. I know. James nodded, which means you've had 25 years to notice what was happening under your watch. 25 years to care. James wheeled himself back slightly from the desk. You're not fired, Mr. Henderson. Not yet, but you're being transferred to our audit division. You'll spend the next year reviewing every questionable loan decision, personally contacting affected customers, and helping us make this right. Consider an opportunity to learn what you should have been paying attention to all along. Henderson's mouth opened and closed like a fish out of water. Then James turned to Olivia. What he said next shocked everyone in the room. As for you, Ms. Walker... Olivia looked up, her face a mess of tears and running makeup, expecting the final blow. But what James Carter said next, what he decided to do with the woman who had humiliated him just 30 minutes earlier, would prove that this story was about something much bigger than revenge. The office was so quiet you could hear the air conditioning humming through the vents. Olivia sat frozen, barely breathing, waiting for James Carter to end her career with a single sentence. She deserved it. She knew she deserved it. Everything she'd worked for, gone. Her apartment, her car payments, her entire life, about to crumble because of 60 seconds of cruelty. James looked at her for a long moment. His expression was unreadable. Ms. Walker, he said finally, do you know why I asked you to be present for this meeting? Olivia shook her head, unable to speak. Because I wanted you to understand something. I wanted you to see firsthand what happens when prejudice becomes policy, when personal bias becomes institutional discrimination. He gestured to the folder on Henderson's desk. Every number in that report every statistic, and every rejected loan application. It started with someone like you, someone who looked at a customer and made a snap judgment, someone who decided, consciously or unconsciously, that certain people didn't belong, that certain people weren't worthy of respect. Olivia closed her eyes, fresh tears streaming down her cheeks. What you did to me today wasn't just rude, James continued. It wasn't just unprofessional. It was a symptom of something much larger, something systemic. He paused. And here's the thing that most people don't understand about systemic racism. It doesn't require hatred. It doesn't require burning crosses or slurs or violence. Sometimes, all it requires is a bank teller who looks at someone and decides, in that split second, that they're not worth her time, that they're probably lying, that they don't belong. The words hung in the air like smoke. So here's what's going to happen, James said, his voice firm but not cruel. You're not fired. Olivia's eyes snapped open. Henderson looked equally shocked. You're not fired, James repeated, because firing you would be easy. It would make me feel better for about 5 minutes, and then nothing would change. You'd go work at another bank, and you'd probably treat the next person in a wheelchair, or the next black customer, or the next person you deemed beneath you exactly the same way. He leaned forward slightly in his wheelchair. Instead, here's your choice. You can resign right now, walk out of here, and we'll never speak again. I won't give you a reference, but I also won't actively prevent you from finding other work. That's option 1. Olivia waited, her heart pounding. Option 2 is this: you stay, but not at this branch. You're being transferred to our South Dallas location, the branch that serves predominantly black and Hispanic neighborhoods, and you're being demoted. Henderson shifted uncomfortably, but said nothing. You'll spend the next year working as a customer service representative, not a teller, not in a position of power, but helping people, actually helping them. You'll be assisting customers with opening accounts, understanding loan applications, navigating financial services. The people you used to look down on, you're going to serve them. James's eyes were steady on hers. You'll also be required to complete 200 hours of diversity and sensitivity training, not the standard corporate training, real education. You'll attend workshops led by people with disabilities. You'll volunteer at community centers. You'll listen to people's stories, and you'll learn why words matter, why respect matters. Olivia's mouth had fallen open. After 1 year, if your supervisor gives you a satisfactory review, if you've actually changed, actually learned, actually become someone who treats every human being with dignity regardless of what they look like or what challenges they face, then we'll discuss your future with this company. He sat back. But understand this. You won't get special treatment. You won't get second chances beyond this one. If you slip back into old habits, if you treat anyone with the contempt you showed me today, you're done. Not just with this bank. I'll make sure everyone in this industry knows exactly why you were terminated. The room was absolutely silent. So that's your choice, Ms. Walker. Walk away now, or stay and do the work to become better. What's it going to be? Olivia looked down at her hands. They were still shaking. Her mind was racing. She could walk away, start over somewhere else, pretend this never happened. But something James had said was echoing in her head. It started with someone like you. She thought about the black customers she'd dismissed over the years, the Hispanic family she'd made wait longer than white customers, the assumptions she'd made 1,000 times without even realizing it. She thought about her own grandmother, who'd marched in the 60s, who'd told young Olivia stories about what real discrimination looked like: separate water fountains, lunch counters, buses. Olivia had always thought those days were over, that she could never be part of that ugliness. But she had been, just in a different way, a quieter way, a way that was easier to ignore. I'll stay, Olivia whispered. James raised an eyebrow. Speak up, please. I'll stay, Olivia said louder, her voice cracking. I'll do the training. I'll do whatever it takes. You're right about everything you said, and I'm ashamed. I'm so ashamed. She looked directly at James for the first time since entering the office. I can't take back what I said to you. I can't undo it. But I want to be better. I need to be better. So yes, I'll stay. I'll do the work. James studied her face for a long moment, as if trying to determine whether she meant it. Finally, he nodded. All right, Mr. Henderson will arrange your transfer. You start at the South Dallas branch on Monday morning, 7 a.m. sharp. Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. Don't thank me yet, James said. This is going to be the hardest year of your life. But if you truly commit to it, it might also be the most important. He turned back to Henderson. As for the rest of this branch, I want a full staff meeting scheduled for Monday afternoon. I'll be addressing everyone personally about the changes we're implementing. Of course, Mr. Carter. Whatever you need. I also want to review your hiring practices, your promotion decisions, everything. James tapped the folder on the desk. This report shows patterns that go beyond one employee. This is a culture problem, and culture starts at the top. Henderson nodded miserably. James began gathering his papers and placing them back in his briefcase. I think we're done here for today. I have another meeting across town at 2 o'clock. He wheeled himself toward the door, then paused and looked back at Olivia. Ms. Walker, one more thing. Yes, sir? That woman in line today. The one who was recording on her phone. She offered to send me the video of our interaction. Olivia's stomach dropped. I declined. James said simply, "What happened between us today stays between us. I'm not interested in destroying you on social media or turning you into a viral villain. I'm interested in change. Real change. The kind that happens when people look inward and choose to be better." He moved toward the door again, then stopped once more. But make no mistake. If you waste this opportunity, if you don't take this seriously, that video will be the least of your problems. Understood? Understood, Olivia whispered. James nodded to Henderson. I'll see myself out. Expect my team to be in touch by the end of the week to begin the audit process. And with that, he wheeled himself out of the office, down the hallway, and back into the main lobby of the bank. The crowd that had witnessed Olivia's cruelty earlier was mostly gone now, replaced by a new group of customers who had no idea what had just transpired. They saw only a well-dressed man in a wheelchair, moving efficiently toward the exit. The security guard, an older black man named Thomas, who'd been working at the bank for 15 years, held the door open for James. "Have a good day, sir," Thomas said. James smiled at him. "Thank you. You do the same." As James wheeled out into the bright Texas sunshine, Thomas watched him go. He'd seen the whole thing earlier. Olivia's cruelty, the man's dignity, he didn't know all the details of what had happened in Henderson's office. But he knew enough. And as he watched James Carter climb into a specially modified Mercedes-Benz and drive away, Thomas smiled. Because for once, someone who deserved consequences had gotten them. And someone who deserved justice had delivered it. But Thomas had no idea that this was just the beginning. Because what James Carter was about to do next would not only transform First National Bank, it would send shockwaves through the entire banking industry, exposing a truth that had been hiding in plain sight for decades. 3 months later, the South Dallas branch of First National Bank looked different than it had 3 months ago. The changes were small at first. A new mural on the wall featuring local community leaders, updated signage in both English and Spanish, comfortable seating in the waiting area instead of the old plastic chairs. But the real changes went deeper than paint and furniture. Much deeper. Olivia Walker stood behind the customer service desk, helping an elderly Hispanic woman named Mrs. Rodriguez understand her mortgage refinancing options. The old Olivia would have rushed through this conversation, annoyed by the language barrier, impatient with the questions. But that Olivia was gone. "So if I understand correctly," Mrs. Rodriguez said slowly in accented English, "you're saying I could save almost $200 every month?" "Yes, ma'am," Olivia said, smiling genuinely. She'd learned some basic Spanish over the past few months, not fluently, but enough to show respect, enough to try. "Your credit score has improved significantly since you first got your mortgage. You qualify for much better rates now." Mrs. Rodriguez's eyes filled with tears. $200. That's groceries for my grandchildren. That's their school supplies. "I know," Olivia said softly. "And you've earned it. You've been making your payments on time for 7 years straight. That shows incredible discipline and responsibility. She began filling out the refinancing application on her computer. The old Olivia might have found reasons to delay this, to create obstacles, but now she saw what she'd been blind to before. Every dollar mattered to people like Mrs. Rodriguez. Every bit of respect mattered. Every moment of being truly seen mattered. This will take about 2 weeks to process, Olivia explained. But I'm going to put a rush on it, and I'll call you personally when it's approved. You have my direct number, right? Mrs. Rodriguez clutched Olivia's business card like it was made of gold. Thank you. Thank you so much. You've been so kind. After Mrs. Rodriguez left, Olivia took a moment to breathe. She looked around the branch, at the families waiting for service, at her co-workers helping customers with patience and care, at the photos on the wall showing the diversity of the community they served. This branch was 90% Black and Hispanic customers. And for the first time in her life, Olivia was in the minority. It had been terrifying at first, humbling, eye-opening. She'd spent the first week expecting everyone to know what she'd done, expecting them to treat her with the same contempt she'd shown James Carter. But they didn't know. They just saw another bank employee trying to help them. And slowly, day by day, conversation by conversation, something inside her had begun to crack open. She'd met Marcus, a Black veteran in a wheelchair, who came in every week to deposit his disability check. He'd told her stories about fighting for a country that didn't always fight for him, about coming home to find that doors, literal and figurative, weren't built for people like him. She'd helped the Nguyen family, Vietnamese immigrants, open their first business account for a small restaurant. She'd seen their pride, their hope, their dreams, all the things she'd been too blind to see before. She'd attended workshops where people with disabilities shared their daily struggles, where people of color talked about being followed in stores, pulled over by police, passed over for promotions despite being qualified. And she cried. A lot. Not the performative tears of someone seeking sympathy, but the deep, painful tears of someone realizing how much harm they caused, how much they'd missed, how much they'd been wrong about. Meanwhile, across town, James Carter sat in his downtown office on the 34th floor of the Carter Holdings building, reviewing reports on his laptop. His assistant, a sharp young woman named Keisha, knocked on his open door. Mr. Carter? The quarterly audit results from First National are ready. Come in, James said, gesturing to the chair across from his desk. Keisha handed him a tablet with the comprehensive report. James scrolled through the data, his expression neutral. Loan approval rates for Black applicants at the Houston main branch. He read aloud. Up 47%. Hispanic applicants, up 41%. Interest rate disparities, reduced by 63% across all demographics. He looked up at Keisha. This is good progress. There's more, Keisha said, tapping the screen to pull up another section. Customer satisfaction surveys. The South Dallas branch has gone from the lowest-rated branch in the region to the third highest in just 3 months. James raised his eyebrows. Third highest? What changed? According to the comments, customers feel respected, listened to, like the staff actually cares about helping them, not just processing transactions. Keisha smiled. One customer wrote, For the first time in my life, I walked into a bank and felt like I belonged there. James sat back in his wheelchair, a small smile on his face. And the staff? How are they adjusting? Most of them love it. There have been a few transfers out, people who didn't want to do the work of unlearning their biases. But the ones who stayed, they're thriving. Keisha hesitated, including Olivia Walker. James's expression didn't change. Tell me about her. Her supervisor says she's exceeded expectations. She's completed all her required training hours. Actually, she's done an extra 60 hours on her own time. She volunteers twice a week at a disability rights center, and her customer satisfaction ratings are among the highest in the branch. Keisha pulled up a video on the tablet. Her supervisor sent this. It was recorded by a customer last week. James watched as Olivia appeared on screen, helping a young Black man in a wheelchair navigate the bank's online platform on his phone. She was patient, encouraging, and when the man made a joke about the wheelchair ramp being too steep outside the branch, Olivia immediately wrote down his feedback. I'm going to personally make sure that gets fixed, she said in the video. You shouldn't have to struggle to access services you have every right to use. Thank you for telling me. The young man smiled. You know, you're the first bank person who's ever actually listened when I complained about accessibility. Well, I'm listening now, Olivia said, and I promise you we're going to do better. The video ended. James was quiet for a long moment. Schedule a visit to the South Dallas branch, he finally said, next Tuesday morning. Don't tell them I'm coming. Keisha nodded, making a note. Will do. The following Tuesday, Olivia was helping a customer when she noticed a commotion near the entrance. She looked up and her heart stopped. James Carter had just wheeled through the door. Time seemed to slow down. Every interaction they'd had 3 months ago came flooding back. Her cruelty, his grace, the moment her world fell apart. She watched as James stopped to chat with the security guard, asking about his day. She watched as he complimented the new mural on the wall, pausing to read the names of the local leaders featured in the artwork. And then his eyes found hers across the lobby. For a moment, neither of them moved. Then James wheeled toward her desk. Olivia's customer, an older black woman named Ms. Davis. Notice her expression. Honey, you all right? You look like you've seen a ghost. Yes, ma'am. I'm fine. Olivia forced herself to breathe. Let me just finish printing your receipt. By the time Ms. Davis had left, James had reached her desk. Ms. Walker, he said, his voice neutral. Mr. Carter. Olivia's voice was steady, but her hands were shaking. I didn't know you were visiting today. That was intentional. James said, I wanted to see how things really operate, not a performance for the owner. He looked around the branch, taking everything in, then his eyes returned to her. Walk with me, he said. It wasn't a request. Olivia signaled to her supervisor that she was taking a break and followed James outside. They moved to a quiet spot in the small plaza next to the bank, under the shade of a large oak tree. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. I've been reviewing your progress reports, James finally said. Olivia's stomach churned. Yes, sir. Your supervisor speaks highly of you. Your customers speak highly of you. Your training instructors speak highly of you. He paused. That must feel very different from 3 months ago. It does, Olivia admitted quietly. Everything feels different now. Tell me why. Olivia took a deep breath. This was it, the moment she'd been both dreading and hoping for. Because you were right, she said, about everything. I spent 32 years thinking I was a good person, that I wasn't racist, that I treated everyone fairly. But I was wrong. She looked directly at him, tears forming in her eyes but not falling. I didn't hate black people or people with disabilities, but I didn't see them either. Not really. I saw stereotypes, assumptions, categories. I saw everything except their humanity. A single tear escaped down her cheek. Working here, meeting these customers, hearing their stories. It's like I've been colorblind my whole life, and suddenly I can see. Really see. And what I see is how much I missed. How much damage people like me do without even realizing it. She wiped her eyes quickly. I can't take back what I said to you. I carry that shame every single day. But I'm trying to be someone who adds light to the world instead of darkness. Someone who sees people. All people. James was quiet, studying her face. Do you know why I gave you this opportunity instead of just firing you? He asked. No, sir. Because I've learned something in my 43 years, James said. Punishment feels good in the moment, but it rarely creates lasting change. What creates change is giving people the opportunity to do better and holding them accountable when they don't take it. He gestured to the bank behind them. You took it. You did the work. You didn't just go through the motions. You actually changed, and that matters. Olivia felt something breaking open in her chest. Relief, gratitude, something close to redemption. Thank you, she whispered. Thank you for seeing something in me worth saving. James smiled slightly. I didn't save you, Ms. Walker. You saved yourself. I just gave you the tools. He began wheeling back toward the parking lot, then stopped and looked back at her. Your 1-year review is in 2 months. If you continue on this trajectory, we'll be discussing your future with this company. And I want you to know, I don't just see you as a cautionary tale. I see potential for you to become a leader, someone who can teach others what you've learned, someone who can help us make real, lasting change. Olivia's eyes widened. You consider promoting me? After everything? Everyone deserves a second chance, Ms. Walker, but very few people actually earn it. James's expression was sincere. You're earning it. Don't waste it. I won't, Olivia said firmly. I promise you I won't. James nodded and wheeled toward his car. But before he got in, he turned back one more time. And Ms. Walker, that wheelchair ramp your customer complained about? I noticed it too. It's already being fixed. Should be done by Friday. He smiled. Because you were right. People shouldn't have to struggle to access services they have every right to use. We're all going to do better. 6 months later, the conference room at First National Bank headquarters was packed. James Carter stood at the front. Yes, stood, using forearm crutches for support, addressing a room full of banking executives, diversity officers, and media representatives. He didn't use the crutches often. The wheelchair was easier, more comfortable. But today felt like a day for standing. 6 months ago, James began, I gave you a challenge. I asked you to look at your lending practices, your hiring practices, your entire culture, and ask yourselves a hard question. Who are we really serving? He gestured to a presentation screen behind him, showing graphs and statistics. These numbers tell a story. They show that when we remove bias from the equation, when we treat every customer with dignity and respect, everyone wins. Not just the customers who were previously underserved. Everyone. The graphs showed loan default rates, customer retention, branch profitability, all improved across the board. We proved that diversity isn't just a moral imperative. It's good business. And more importantly, it's the right thing to do. James paused, scanning the room. But this isn't a victory lap. This is a beginning. Because what we discovered here, the disparities, the biases, the blind spots, exists in banks across this country, across every industry. It exists in healthcare, in education, in housing, in criminal justice. His voice grew stronger. And it persists because it's comfortable for those of us who benefit from it to look away, to pretend it's not our problem, to believe that because we're not actively hateful, we're not part of the problem. He looked directly at the camera recording the presentation, the one that would be broadcast to all 47 branches and shared online. I'm here to tell you that not being hateful isn't enough. Not being actively racist isn't enough. We have to be actively anti-racist, actively inclusive, actively working to dismantle the systems that create inequality. James smiled. And here's the beautiful thing. When we do that work, when we truly commit to seeing and valuing every human being, we don't just change systems. We change ourselves. In South Dallas, Olivia Walker watched the presentation on the break room television with her colleagues. When it ended, she wiped tears from her eyes. Her supervisor, Miss Chun, put a hand on her shoulder. You okay? Yeah, Olivia said, smiling through the tears. I'm better than okay. I'm grateful. She looked around at her co-workers. People from every background, every story, every walk of life. People she now considered friends. People she now truly saw. I'm grateful I got the chance to become someone I'm proud to be. 2 years later, Olivia Walker stood in front of a conference room at First National Bank headquarters, leading a diversity training session for new managers. She was nervous, but ready. My name is Olivia Walker, she began, and I'm going to tell you a story about the worst day of my life, the day I learned that I was part of the problem. She took a deep breath. 2 years ago, I worked as a teller at our Houston branch, and one morning, a black man in a wheelchair came to my counter. As she told her story, leaving nothing out, hiding nothing, owning every ugly moment, she watched the faces in the room. Some looked shocked, some looked uncomfortable, some looked like they were seeing themselves in her words. Good, because that was the point. At the back of the room, James Carter sat quietly in his wheelchair, listening. When Olivia finished her presentation and opened the floor for questions, he raised his hand. "Yes, Mr. Carter?" Olivia said, smiling. "I have a question," James said. "You mentioned that day changed your life. But what would you say to someone who's sitting here right now, recognizing themselves in your story? Someone who realizes they've been making the same mistakes you made." Olivia met his eyes. After 2 years, they developed a relationship built on mutual respect, honesty, and shared purpose. He'd become not just her boss, but mentor, a teacher, a friend. "I tell them what someone once told me," Olivia said, "that punishment feels good in the moment, but change is what matters. And change starts with being honest, really honest, about who you've been, so you can become who you need to be." She looked around the room. "I tell them it's going to be hard. It's going to be uncomfortable. You're going to realize things about yourself that hurt to admit. But on the other side of that discomfort is something beautiful, the chance to actually see people, all people, and to treat them with the dignity that every human being deserves." Olivia smiled. "And I tell them that if someone like me can change, someone who said the things I said, who did the things I did, then anyone can. You just have to want it. You just have to do the work." The room was silent for a moment. Then someone started clapping. Then another person. Then another. Soon the entire room was applauding. Not for Olivia's story, but for her courage in telling it, for her willingness to be vulnerable, for her commitment to becoming better. James caught her eye and nodded once, a simple gesture that said everything. "You earned this. You did the work. I'm proud of you." After the session ended and the room cleared out, James and Olivia stood together by the window overlooking downtown Houston. "You know," James said, "when I gave you that choice 2 years ago, I wasn't sure which way it would go." "Really?" Olivia asked. "You seemed so confident." "I was faking it," James admitted with a laugh. "I was angry, hurt, and a part of me wanted to just fire you and be done with it. Why didn't you?" James was quiet for a moment, looking out at the city below. "Because my mother once told me something I never forgot. She said, 'Baby, hurt people, but healed people heal people.' She said that the only way to break the cycle of pain is to give people the chance to heal and to hold them accountable if they don't take it." He looked at Olivia. "You took it, you healed, and now you're helping other people heal. That ripple effect, that's how we change a world. One person, one choice, one act of courage at a time." Olivia felt tears forming again. "Thank you, James, for everything, for seeing something in me worth saving. Thank you for doing the work to save it." James replied. They stood together in comfortable silence, watching the sun set over the city. Two people who met in the worst possible way, but who'd somehow found their way to something like friendship, something like hope, because that's what second chances look like when they're earned. That's what redemption looks like when it's real. And that's what change looks like when we have the courage to do the hard work of becoming better. Not perfect, but better. And sometimes better is enough.